All right, so we're back from break. My name is Brian Adams. I'm with the College of Arts and Letters. I'm the lead developer for the College of Arts and Letters. I'll be talking a little bit about Git. Git is one of those projects you hear a lot about. You hear it every day. Everybody's switching to Git. Git's great and all this. And it's one of those things that you eventually go, well, I guess I should check that out. And you check it out and it scares the crap out of you. And you put it away for a while and then you come back a little bit later and go, all right, they're still talking about it. And then as you start to use it, you go, okay, I get it. Fair enough. Yep, that was a good call. So that's kind of what happened to me, and that's what happened to pretty much everyone that I've talked to, and I've kind of evangelized Git over the course of time. It's a very, very robust version control system. That said, it's not all that much different than the rest of them. So basic features of Git, peer-to-peer approach, which means every single user's repository is a bona fide repository. Every copy someone has is a bona fide full copy of the repository. They have the full history of changes. They have everything that exists there in the repository. Everything except pull and push, which sends things up to another server or another repository, all of those are offline and therefore they're fast. That's not to say that everything else isn't relatively fast, but those particular things, you don't need a network connection, you don't need these things, they happen very, very quickly. It's compatible with multiple transport protocols, which simply means it can work over HTTP, FTP, rsync, SSH, the built-in Git protocol, all these things that come along, you can use any one of these to use it. All that's really required to be able to use Git to share repositories is that the other person can get access to the files of the repository. If you can get to the files, Git can work with them. Not a big deal. Rapid branching and merging, there's very little penalty for branching in terms that it's really just saying, okay, cool, I'm going to call this a branch now. It's not doing a full copy of the full tree or anything like that. It's just making a reference to it and saying, cool, I know what you're talking about when you're talking about that branch now. So there's no real penalty. It's built for being able to do nonlinear develop, to work with a lot of branches in a lot of different times and everything come back together without issue. Platforms. It's native to Linux, so it works best on Linux. Windows, there's full support for Windows by the people who publish Git, and Mac OS X, so they have a client for that as well. There's a couple different options for Windows. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the different tools and things like that. Clients, you can use command line, native GUI. There's Eclipse plugins, Tortoise Git, which is similar to Tortoise SVN. Xcode includes it in version 4 as native support. NetBeans includes it. So there's a lot of different ways to use it. I'm familiar with command line, which is what I use the majority of the time, and I'm familiar with eGit with Eclipse. I don't use the Eclipse plugin that much, but sometimes it's nice just to be able to see things in a pretty display rather than going to the command line. That said, the command line is incredibly powerful and fast, and it's my preferred method. I don't know if it's everyone's preferred method. Some people like GUIs. I respect that. But I'm a command line person. When we talk peer-to-peer, we kind of talked about this a little bit in the earlier presentations, in that I can pull from anyone else's repository. I can do this completely ad hoc. I don't have to have a central place I'm going to. I can talk to, in this case, it's Alice, Bob, Charlie, David. I can talk to Alice and say, I've got a change I think you want. Why don't you go ahead and pull my changes and work on that? And she can say to me, you should pull my changes and those kinds of things. The part of this that's a little bit frustrating is it requires constant communication to know what's going on with the project. There's no centralized place that is this is the real copy of everything. And that's just one method of handling that. The central repository method, the centralized method, where we've got a central repository that everybody talks to. This is the master copy that we all work off. The important thing to remember here is I still can go to Alice and pull her changes directly, but I can push to a central repository and then have Alice go back to the central repository and pull it from there. She doesn't have to be able to get to my files to do anything with them. We can if we're working on something together that I don't necessarily want the rest of the world to have access to yet. We can just go ad hoc between ourselves, and then once it's ready to go, we can send it up to the repository for everyone to see. We don't have to do that, though. This alleviates some of the concerns with communication in that there is a place to say, this is the real thing. This is what we're working off of. but there's still the issue that we still have to communicate and talk about things and figure out what's going on. There's two terms in Git, push and pull. Push refers to me sending my changes up to another server. Pull refers to me getting changes from someplace else. The key with Git is to remember that unless it's a centralized repository, we're never pushing to it because it has a checked out working tree and all these things, and Git gets very, very upset and unhappy. And it'll balk at you until you really can't do that, until you say, I really want to. And it'll say, okay, fair enough. It'll let you do it. And then when we're working with checked out repositories, we're always pulling so that we're not touching anyone else's stuff. We're just getting their changes into our working tree. As far as repository management, and this is where I think source control really takes a different stance. Source control is one thing, and that's all great, but repository management takes a whole new level to it and says, okay, how can I organize this and how can I make it useful to everyone? Oops, there we go. GitHub is a hosting provider. It provides open source projects. You can pay for hosting for private projects. And in all of these options, there's the hosted option, and then there's an open source project that mimics it pretty closely. Gitorious has a very close to GitHub feel, but it's also, you can install on your own. They also have hosting as well. Google Code offers Git hosting, which is all fine and dandy. And Indifero is a very close clone, is intended to be a very close clone of Google Code. And I'll show you what we do in the College of Arts and Letters. We use Indifero, we use SSH and SFTP to access all of our repositories, all with public key authentication. There's an URL, have fun with that. That's the project that I set up earlier today to be able to play with Git and take a look at things. So this is what our CodeForge looks like. We have, I don't think I'm logged in right now. We have all of our projects listed here, and the great thing about this is I can go into the WebDevCafe, I can track issues, I can track documentation, downloads. Now, this is nothing special about Git, because this just plugs into Git, and that's all fine and dandy. You can do this with almost any of the SCMs out there, and in fact, Indifero works with many of them. There's lots of different issue trackers. It's a whole different story. But it's still interesting, I think, to look at that next level. Once you start organizing source control, how you can go beyond that. So it gives me advantages that I can go to a web-based interface and look at the source. I can see what the current branch is and all this stuff. I can browse the branches. I can look at the change log and figure out what changed. I can figure out what happened in this particular change, who did it and why, what did they change, those kinds of things. That was the initial commit, so that's me. But to cover again the whole repository hosting thing, it's not required. You don't have to have anywhere to centralize your repository. You can, but you don't have to, because Git will let you just put it on a Samba share, put it anywhere, and say, cool, we're using Git now, which is one of the advantages. There's a lot of different features within Indifero that I won't go hardcore into. The important parts for us is it lets us manage repositories easily. I can manage SSH keys for everyone because we authenticate with SSH, so I can say you just need to go to the CodeForge, upload your SSH key, and you're good to go. It alleviates a lot of those, okay, somebody's got to go and grab the SSH key and upload it and all that, and it's not always going to work. So rather than talking much more about the nitty-gritty of this kind of thing, we're just going to do a little example kind of thing, a little in action, how Git works, to kind of show it. And what we've got, James is, as we're both logged into the same, our dev server, which is all fine and dandy. We could do it on local machines, but this is just easier for us to be able to show what's going on. I'm on the left, and Mr. James is on the right. And what we've got here, if I go to the WebDevCafe directory, I've got a little index.html file. And we already have it cloned. I'll just go ahead and just clone this so we can see what happens. I'll just delete it real quick. So to get a copy of this project that's on, that I have another repo that I want to just grab the copy of and start working with it, I can just do a git clone. All I'm telling Git is go grab this repository. Here's the information to get to it, and that's strange. And go ahead and grab a copy for me and make a working tree for me. So if I now go to WebDevCafe, I've got the current working tree sitting there. You'll note it didn't ask for a password or anything like that. It's all using SSH. We're all using the same user to authenticate to it. It's just using the key to figure out who is trying to talk to the server, which is, I think, a very cool thing. That's just me. So, yeah, that's cloning the repository in a nutshell. Let me go back to here so we can see what's going on. Cloning. So git clone path to repo. What I've also done is set up a little, we're using hooks, which all the other SCMs have available as well. It's nothing special to Git. But if I go to WebDev, come on. I've got a live preview of exactly what the master branch is on the repository at that given time. If I make a change to it and I push another commit, it'll update it for me. And that's just a hook that when I make a commit, it goes, okay, cool, I'm going to go update this copy over here. Nothing special. Subversion, all of them do that. All right, so making an edit. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to make a little, let's see, we've got an index.html, so I'll edit index.html. I put a typo in here, not because I don't know how to spell demoing, but because I thought it'd be cool to put a typo in there. So I've just made that change. Oops. There we go. Now if I do git status, Git tells me what it thinks is going on with the repository. I'm going to do this real quick so you can see what's going on with just this half. So it's telling me that index.html is modified. It's up to me if I want to do something about that or not. It doesn't care either way. So if I now do a git add, we'll add index.html specifically, and I do a git status again, it'll tell me that this change is ready to be committed if I want to go ahead and do that. So committing is just the same as anything else, just a command. Git commit, it's asking me for a commit message. I'll give it a commit message. Fixed the typo. The important thing to realize here is everything has happened in my local copy. Nothing else has happened on the other repositories. So it's just me that has this change. Even though it's a commit, I can commit to the end of time. And one of the tenets of Git is commit early, commit often for that very reason. And that I can. There's no penalty for me. I don't have to wait for contact a server or anything like that. I can just do it all day long. So if I make small changes, I can commit those as I go. So now we'll just push this up. The remote section of that's going on there, that's just telling me that it's gone ahead and done the hook and talk to our little live preview here. Preview. So now we fixed it in the live preview. So that shows us that it's gone to the repo's handled it. Now if I go over to the Forge, I'm talking really fast. I recognize that. Just so we're all clear on that. Trying not to drone. Where am I headed? There we go. So if I refresh this guy, I go to change log. It tells me that 1 minute ago Brian Adams made a commit. And I can go into this commit and see what happened to that particular commit. Oh, I changed those lines. That's all fine and dandy. This is how we get around the disadvantages of some of the Git GUIs that we don't have a lot of control, but what the Git GUIs give us is being able to see what's happening really easily without having to go through commands and all this and try to look at it and say, I don't get what happened. We can go to the Forge and we can get that same GUI, but it's the same thing everyone sees, so we all know what's happening without having to delve into it too deeply. So now let's do a little, why don't you go ahead, James, and just make a change to that. Whatever you like to do, doesn't rightly matter. So he's going to go ahead and edit that. Do this little thing there. It's a little bit fun because then we can see what everybody's doing. A little split screen. Good times. And you can do it, yeah, get commit and push and all that.
I'll take a short.
Demo awesome, excellent. It's giving you a little.
Yeah, it's because I haven't set up my
yeah.
Git user. So I'm gonna push this. It's been rejected. Is it in pull first?
Okay, so it's the same thing as with SVN and all that. We tried to make a commit. The commit failed because this repository isn't the up-to-date repository. There's changes that are happening outside that we want to get merged in before we do anything. So if you do a git pull, that'll fix that. And now you can do a git push.
Those pages have been auto-merged.
Yep. Now we'll talk a little bit about merging in a second, because what's happening right now is Git's doing the whole step of everything all at the same time for us. We have a couple of different things that can happen. We can fetch the local copy and then we can merge it in, or we can do pull and it's just a fetch and a merge for us. We don't have to worry about it. So now if we go back to preview. Oh, you see, change the title. Very nice. So that's why I can't see it. Now the title's been changed to awesome, which is great. That's all we ever wanted. Now, if I do before little conflicting change action. The -a that we had to commit just says that I can skip that add step. If a file has changed, it'll go ahead and it'll add it to the index for me. If a file's been added, if there's a new file, it won't do anything. So it's only for updated files, amended, if you will. Nope. Cancel. X, yes. I'm just going to be a jerk about it now, aren't you? Okay, so okay. So now, if I try to do a push my change, I get the same error that, oops, that James got a second ago. It's telling me that it can't, there's a fast forward error. It can't fast forward the change because of a change that I don't have yet. So if I do a git pull, it'll do the same thing. It's pulling it in. It's trying to auto-merge, but now it's got a conflict. Just like we've had in any of the other SCMs, there's only so much Git can do. It's very good, but just like anything, it can't merge everything. If there's a change on the same line, it doesn't know. So just like we can use a GUI tool if we want to. So those hyphens and equals and all that tell the angle brackets that tell us what changed and how it changed. I can say that I want my change to be the real change. So all I'm doing is just deleting the things that I don't want there and making the file the way I want it. Save it. Now, because there's been a conflict, that's the right way to pronounce that. Because there's been a conflict now, we're going to have to go back through and actually make a new commit that fixes the conflict. Anytime we do a merge, Git quietly does a commit for us that we don't really ever see. It just happens for us. If there's a conflict, it's gonna make us do the merge manually so that we can fix it ourselves. So now we'll just add that back in. Rejected. I've not concluded my merge. Two diverged. That's interesting. Sorry, little break there. Everybody's got to have a little problem with their demo today. It's just what happens. You're not going to let him pull either. I added that. Thank you. Sorry about that little break there. Git now knows that I've fixed it. It's giving me the option to enter a commit message to say how I fixed the commit the conflict. Which is all fine and dandy. I don't have to give one. Now it's said that it's done it. If I want to share this change with the world, I have to push it because it's just on my local copy. And now, finally. Let's just fix that. is what I get for trying to work quickly. Yay! That's much nicer. So that's a conflicting change that I did not demonstrate well at all how easy it is to take care of a conflicting change. So sorry, Git. I may not have any converts now because of that, which is fine. I'll take it. So making an edit, pushing and pulling. It's just that the only time we're gonna pull is to this bare repository. I could pull directly from his changes if I want. I don't have any desire to do that because we have this central repository going on. Branching. I'll cover this real quick. I'm reluctant to branch now because I screwed up the merge, but I'm confident that I can handle it. So branching in Git, like we talked about, it's all about being able to branch easily without issue. So to branch in this case, all I have to do is tell Git I want to branch and give it a name. So I'm going to say this is going to be new para. Okay, so I've created a branch at this point where it's this current commit that I'm on becomes the branch. It's important to know that if you're currently editing files and you try to branch, it's branching off that current commit. So any edited files that have happened that haven't been committed yet, those aren't real yet, so Git's not going to create the branch based on that point. So now, if I want to check it out, I'm going to new para. New Git status again now tells us that we're on new para, which I don't want to give anything away, but I'm going to make a new paragraph. It's going to be good times. So now we'll edit index.html. I'm going to make a commit on this branch just like I do every place else. Add a paragraph. Now it's completely up to me if I want to share this new branch that I just created with the world. I don't have to. Git will happily let me keep it on my own. If I want to just back it up there, that's fine and dandy. If I want somebody else to be able to work off that same branch, I can do that as well. So now if we go into our little code forge, the code forge is telling me that I've got a new branch that I can see what's going on there. This is a completely separate tree. There's no connection other than that where they origined from the same point to that original branch. If I make any changes to new para, it's not necessarily going to be reflected there. That should be relatively obvious. To me, I don't know. So now James, if you want to go ahead and do a poll real quick.
Yep.
You should have you got all the changes, and you got the new branch as well. So now James can make any changes to the master branch he likes. It's not going to affect my branch or anything else. He can check out my branch just like if you can do a check out new para. And then go ahead and just cat that index.html. Don't do that. Nobody wants that. You can see that he sees that new paragraph. If you go ahead and switch back to master and you cat that file again. You can see all this happens very quickly. There's no real delay in needing to switch to a branch. Then now this is right back to the old file. So I can switch to any branches I want at any point in time, and it will just happily update all the files, and everything will be ready to go. So merging back in that branch, I'll just do this very quickly because we're kind of out of time. Yeah, let me. So this should be a very clean one. Git checkout master, git merge, new para. So now I've merged back in that change. If I cat that file, Git just did that very quickly without me having to do anything. New paragraphs there. Everything's fine and dandy. I can push that change up. Project organization. This is just the last little talking bits. Project organization. You can organize a project. Git makes no conventions about how you organize a project, how you use branches, tags, releases, all these things. They're completely up to you. There's several different methodologies out there. One of the ones that's kind of taking the forefront right now is this whole Git flow kind of branching model where we create branches for features and releases and all that. It's a pain to manage manually, because you're trying to keep one branch set straight and ready to go. You're trying to branch off and make sure everything works, and it doesn't always work. You forget to merge back to a certain branch, and things get out of whack pretty quickly. Git flow, which is an extension or a wrapper to Git, which gives us a lot more features to be able to say, Git flow, start this feature, and it'll create all the branches for me. I can finish the feature, it'll merge everything back in the way it's supposed to be, and just handle all of that stuff for me. It's just a very quick and easy wrapper, so that I don't have to think about all the stuff that has to go in the background. It'll take care of those things for me. It's simple to do because they are just repetitive, easy tasks. They're just easy to mess up. Tips. There's a handful of commands that are really great to know. Stash, status, diff, reset. Stashes are great because if I'm working on something, I have a problem, I find another problem someplace else, I can stash my current changes, I can make the commits and fix the things that I found, and then I can pop that back off the stash and go right back to where I was working. So I can just real quickly get that out of the way, come back to it. I don't have to say, crap, and not be able to fix that until I finish what I'm working on. Git reset hard takes me right back to the actual commit. If I've made changes, it undoes every change I've made to any file. You have to be careful. There's no undoing that one. Status is the command of the day for Git because it tells you what it thinks about what you're getting ready to do. If you do a status, it'll tell you what it's going to do. Resources. I'm out of breath. There's a handful of things out there. The kernel wiki is great. Obviously, it's a Linux kernel project, and there's a couple of other resources there that might be helpful.